All right, let's give a couple examples of using the group by on pandas data frame data. And we'll also look at a bar chart, which I don't think we did yet, and another pie chart example. So I'm just going to go ahead and call in the Titanic data. So you've seen this already on files I've handed out. So we're just going to go ahead and do that. And you can see we've selected a subset of the data. For survived, 0 is died, 1 is lived. First, second, third class, male or female, the age of the ticket holder, and how much they paid for the ticket. All right, so the basic format for the group by command is we're just going to take the data. That's what we've called this table, this data frame table. And we're going to do a group by, and then we'll just select in here what column we want to group by. And then we can either take a mean of the remaining columns, or we can go ahead and count simply the numbers in a given column. We can do this also by 2 columns or 3 columns. And if we do that, we just have to remember to unstack accordingly. So we'll go ahead and look at those examples. All right, so let's say that we want to know what the average ticket price paid by those that died versus survived, okay, and generate a bar graph for this. All right, so the average tells us that we're going to be looking at this format here for the mean. Okay, so my general format is going to be data, group by, and then mean. Okay, so we can take the average. And I'd like to know those that died versus survived. And so then I'm going to go ahead and group by the survived data. Okay, so that'll go through all of the data records that we have. It'll pull all the died, the zeros out, and then it will find the mean of the ticket class. Can't do it for the sex, so it won't show up this column. It will for the age and for the fare. It'll provide a mean for each of those. Okay, and it makes sense for a mean in terms of fare and age. It doesn't really make sense for the class, so we just ignore that column. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like. So there it is. You can see it took all of our data and collapsed it now into a survive code. So this is again died, survived, and we've got it by the average for the class, which we said doesn't make sense, so ignore this. This is the average age of those that died versus survived. This is the average price paid by those that died versus survived. Okay, and we're interested in the average ticket price. So that's this column here, the fare. And so what we want to do to get that is just to go ahead and select that with our location. And we're going to do all rows, that's the colon. And then we're going to go select the column fare. All right, so there's our data that we want to make a bar chart from. Okay, so survived, died, lived, and then the values there for the average fare price. So let's go ahead and set up for a bar chart. And I'm going to go ahead and copy from my cheat sheet the standard way of generating a bar chart. So this is a good example to have in your cheat sheet. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and generate the data for the bar chart, and that's what we've done here. We've put that in, so I'm just going to copy that down. And then we want to go ahead and label the data. So it's going to plot the $22 and the $48 for our 2 bars. The first one you can see is died, so I'm going to put that in as a label. The second one means it's survived, so I'll put that in as a label. So we'll have 2 bars labeled died and survived. So we'll go ahead and generate in our standard form using the subplots command for our overall figure and our one plot, so we have one axis here. We're going to do a bar chart on it, and I'm going to give it the labels, and then the height for the bars is just our data set. I could, if I want to, set the Y labels, maybe the title, and etc. And then I'm just going to go ahead and show it. All right, so there's our simple bar chart. Okay, for again the average fare price versus those that died versus those that survived. So it looks like we had a quite a bit larger ticket price for those that survived. All right, let's look at another quick example. What is the average age of the male and female passengers in first, second, and third class? Okay, so this looks like we're going to need to do a group by in 2 columns now. So we're going to take our data again. We're going to do a group by. So I'm just going to put the general format here. I want an average age, so I want an average, so I'm going to do a mean on the columns. All right, so now I just need to give it a list of the columns I'm going to group by. So we're going to do male and female. So that was the sex column name. And then we're going to do the P class. So let's see what that looks like. So we've got the average for the average age for the male and female passengers in first, second, and third class. So here's our first, second, third class. And we've got female and male. In this format, the data is hard to use. So we have to remember that we're always going to do is convert this data from sort of rows to columns by unstacking it. And we always unstack one time less than the number of group by columns. So last time we did 1, so we didn't do an unstack at all. In this case, we're doing 2 group by, so we'll unstack once. So let's see what that looks like. Okay, so there we go. So if we go ahead and look at our categories, these are mean values, and we're interested in age. So I want this data here. Okay, I'm not worried about the average fare price, and this average is here. This data set is nonsense, so we'll just ignore that. I want the age. Now I can go ahead and do my location, and I want all rows, and I'm going to grab the data for age. All right, so there we go. So we've got class, first, second, third, and we have the average age of the females and the males in those 3 classes. So we could do another bar chart with this one as well. I can grab this last case, bring it down here, and go ahead and chart. So let me go ahead and grab my data set. Okay, now I have 2 different sets of data here on rows, and I can only use one of them for the bar chart, at least one at a time. So I want to go ahead and I'm going to grab the female one. Okay, so I'm going to use my location again. And then this time, since I'm grabbing the row, I can just go ahead and write female. All right, so I have my labels. Now I'm going to have 3 of them. I have 3 columns, first, second, and third. So those are my labels. So we'll get those in there. And all right, and we've got our plots. So we're going to grab the labels, we're going to grab the data, and now we're looking at the average age. So we can get rid of that, write average age, and then we can set a title if we like. I'm just going to go ahead and ignore the title for now. And there we go. So this is the average age of passengers in the first, second, and third class categories. Okay, and that includes both male and female. It's an overall age, since we didn't separate. Sorry, let me take that back. We did separate out by male and female, but we chose to just plot the females. So this is the average age for the females in the first, second, and third class. And so if I want the same thing for the males, I could just change this to male. And I'll get a new set here looking at the bottom one. All right, let's say I want it to combine these. I want to look at the bar chart for the different classes, and I want to show the male and female bars. So I want to basically do a grouped bar chart. So let me go ahead and grab my cheat sheet for this. I'm going to have a little bit more in here now. But you can look at this, pause the video and take a look at this a little closer. Okay, what we've got are our labels, which are still first, second, third. Now we're going to go ahead and need to generate some positions to put the bars. So the first thing we're going to do is just go ahead and generate a list of numbers for where the bars are going to go based on how many labels we have. Okay, I have 3 labels in this particular case, so I'm going to generate my positions at 0, 1, and 2. That's what this will do here, A range. I'm also going to define the width of my bars. I'm going to make them a bit smaller. By default, they're 0.8. All right, so now that I have that, I can go ahead and define my subplot again. But now I'm going to define 2 bar plots. The first position here is the location of where the bar goes. So I'm going to take my x values, right? And these, all that's important here is the relative positions, but 0, 1, and 2. And for the 1, I'm going to offset it by the width divided by 2, since they're centered on these positions to start with. So I'm going to move it over width divided by 2, and the other one I'm going to move over in the positive direction, width divided by 2. So this will put them next to each other. And then I've got my data that we had before. There's my female data and my male data. This is what we had before. I'm going to apply a label to the 2 sets of data so that I can use a legend. And then I'm going to set my width of the bars equal to 0.35. And then I can go ahead and label things if I want. This part's not necessary, but there's my Y label, my title, my ticks. I do need to do this, so it's saying where to put the X ticks, and that's the positions 0, 1, and 2, and that's where the labels will go when I define the X tick labels. And I'd like a legend. So let me run that, and this is what I get. So now, since I've got 2 different bar charts, it automatically colors them. The first one blue, the second one's green. It labels them female and male from my label that I provided, and the fact that I said go ahead and give me the legend. This is the average age in each of the classes. Okay, so let's try some. Let's say that if I didn't divide this by 2 here, I offset a full width left and right. What would this do? Okay, you can see the 1 got moved off the chart completely. So even on the other end, it got moved off the chart completely. And in fact, this green one actually belongs to this blue one. So, yeah, so they're there. It's just this one got moved over so far, and the original blue that was here got moved back so far they're touching. So we put this big gap in here, so we definitely don't want that. Okay, so let's move them back. If I did something like divide by 3, you can see they're actually overlapping. The second one is covering up some of the first. So the appropriate distance to shift things is 1/2 of the width. So there we go. All right, so that's the way to do a grouped bar chart. And now the last one I want to do is find the number of male, female passengers versus ticket class that died and survived. So we've got 3 things now to go ahead and group by. So we're going to go ahead and do our group by here. So again, the form was data. We're going to group by, and we're going to find, okay, what do we want here? We want the number. So that means we can do the count. And I'm going to group by 3 columns, so that means I'm going to need 2 unstack commands. So there's my basic format. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and put in my 3 group by cases. There we go. Whether they survived or not, the sex, and the class of the ticket. So let's see what that looks like. All right, there we go. And again, these are numbers of ticket holders in these particular class and sex and whether they survive. So this says that in first class, females that survived, we have 82, for example. All right. And so we're going to go ahead and, since the age data, there's some passengers that I didn't have an age for, so there's some missing records. So I'm going to ignore this data, and I'm going to use the fare, because everyone actually has a ticket record. So that means I'm going to just pull out the fare data. So I want all of my rows, and I just want the fare. All right, so there we go. So now this is the number by, again, class of ticket and by gender that have survived, 1, or died, 0. All right, so that's the data now that I can go ahead and plot. And what I'm going to do this time is just do a pie plot. And I'm going to do this according to either the survived or the died category. So I need to take just one of these. So that means I'm going to be putting in here another location command, and this time I'm going to either grab 0 or 1. All right, so I'm going to grab my cheat sheet for this. I've already written all this out just to show. So here's my data for the pie. So that's what we had up here. Okay, there it is to fare. Okay, so that's this table. So we got that table. We're going to apply labels. So the labels would be, say, as I walk across my data set this way, I have first class females, first class males, second class females, second class males, third class, third class. So that's what I've got listed. Okay, so you can see that. So each one's going to have a heading. Go ahead and do my subplot command like we've always done, except now I'm going to go ahead and do a pie. So I need the data for the pie chart. I've already switched this to data for pie. And we can only grab one of these two. I can't do both at the same time. So we're going to go ahead and grab location 1. So that's the ones that have survived. So I'm going to look at just the survived case. I'm going to apply the labels. This tells me when I provide percentages on the pie chart to only use 1 decimal. And this shadow just makes it nice, and start angle 90. Gives us the orientation of the breaks. All right, then I'm going to add some text for the title, and then I'm also going to tell it to set my axes so that they are equal, the X and Y axes. This just ensures that I get an actual circle pie chart and not some kind of ellipse. And then we can go ahead and show it. All right, so there we go. We got the percentage by ticket class and gender of passengers that survived. Right? Remember, I took the survived data here. I could change this to the 0 for those that died, and I'd get a whole different pie chart. I'd have to rechange my labels. All right, so here we are, or change my title. So there you go, you can see it. We got the number of first class females is the largest category that actually survived. And the lowest category, interestingly, is the second class male category, and then first class and third class male that have survived. Okay, but you can interpret this as you want. Okay, that's it for now.